Um, yeah, I mean, we have been hearing, I mean, about the threats, I mean, due to climate change during these days, and we want to stress the fact that soil sealing is one of the exacerbating factors. And what is the situation? I mean, in Europe about soil sealing. I mean, I come from Italy, and in Europe, the land take has actually increased a lot in the past 70 years, while the population growth has not that much. And in Italy, the situation is a little bit well, not a little bit. It is much worse. You can see, for instance, this example in this graph, the town of Carpi, which is located in the northern part of Italy, the most, let's say, the richer part. And just to provide another example, this is the surface, the concrete, let's say, surface that each inhabitant have. And it would be nice, I mean, to have a green space, right? For the same surface. So one of the main challenge for the European Commission is to reduce the loss of soil. And almost 10 years ago, they started this initiative, which is the non-net land take. So we must stop land take, and our governments should have, let's say, the possibilities and the regulations, the methodologies to do that. So what is basically non-net land take? Is the compensation of what has been taken by new building sites. So whenever the land is taken, another land, I mean, should be regenerated. So by the sealing actions, for instance. So each country should be aware about the rate of land take. So they need to track the pace, I mean, by which the land is taken, avoid basically the land take, and set targets not only for reducing the land take but also for reducing other issues. So we provided a methodology which is based on the soil ecosystem services. Maybe you are more familiar with the plant, I mean, ecosystem services, what trees actually provide for the communities. But we have to consider that soils have important functions. And these functions, which are providing trees, providing food, but also support habitat and biodiversity, carbon sequestration, storage and water regulation, for instance, carbon storage and water regulation and storage, are these functions depend on the soil characteristics and properties, which also are related and are depending from external drivers. It can be natural or anthropic. So the functions that soil provides to us and to the vegetation, I mean to the trees growing, provides ecosystem services, which are the four main categories, and also the benefits for us, for the communities. So how the soil ecosystem services can be introduced in the policies in urban planning? A few years ago, we started this European-funded project, which is SOS for Life, Save Our Soils for Life, which was coordinated by a municipality. And this is important because it was like the trade union, let's say, between the research and um, the policy part of the partnership. Um, it was an Italian project and it was run in this region, Emilia-Romagna, in three main towns, which are Forlì, San Lazzaro, and Carpi. The objective of the project was to produce a viable framework for achieving the non land take target for the municipalities. And we mainly succeeded, I mean, by three actions. So the first action was the assessment of the urban regulations and the legislation which is available at European and national level, the definition of a methodology for achieving, I mean, the not land take, and based on the soil ecosystem services. And then the third action was actual the realization of nature-based solution by the sealing actions. So the action one was monitoring and let's say the evaluation, the assessment of what are the available legislation, and at European level, but also at national level, there is no law on soil monitoring and on the containment of land take. Only regional governments in Italy can do something, and in fact, the same region, the Emilia-Romagna region, during the project ongoing, they issued a regional law by which the urban regeneration and the principle of non-net land take has been introduced. And this is maybe the first region in Italy. So the second action about the monitoring and the assessment actually of the soil, well, which goes actually to the methodology for the assessment of the soil ecosystem services, started with a production of thematic maps in order to know which is the land use in each town and the soil type classification. Yeah. So these information are useful to know which is the rate of land take. And then, based on those maps, we could identify more than actually 100 sites where to characterize the soil, mainly of the green spaces. But we focused on 19 sites in which we could go ahead for the classification and for the identification of the soil ecosystem services. So these characteristics of the soils, which are soil texture, bulk density, organic carbon, and so on, were mapped, and they were used in algorithms to calculate the indicators of soil functions, as we saw in the previous slide, in order to produce the maps of 6 main soil ecosystem services, which regard, for instance, the biology, the carbon sequestration, the water storage and water regulation, the productivity and soil buffering capacity regarding pollutants. And then for each unit, for each green space, we can then identify the trade-offs and the synergies between soil ecosystem services. So we can say which green space, for instance, is the more valuable in terms of ecosystem services, or which are not, which are less. So this information is useful to produce the soil quality map, and this is a useful tool for urban planners and for the municipalities in order to decide whether to build a new construction, for instance. So in order to not to take, let's say, valuable land. So how to decide the extent of the compensation? If they want to build in a new green area, they need to open another green area. So we suggest municipalities not only to replace the excess surface, but also to consider the soil quality. So basically our principle is to open a green space which is bigger if the soil quality is higher. And where to deseal, where to regenerate. This can be based, let's say, on several and many criteria, like the social, let's say, the social situations in some neighborhoods, the services, the climate, actually, and this is what we did. In 3 towns, we made simulations with EnviMet in order to know in some neighborhoods of the town which were the most vulnerable squares or neighborhoods, especially for the population living there. So we identified some places where the desealing actions could be actually done. And another point set by the European Commission is to reuse soil. So whenever a new build site is done, we suggest to examine and determine the properties of that soil in order to know if it's possible to really reuse the soil if obviously the pollutant concentration is lower than certain thresholds, And also, this information, in case it can be reused, this information is useful to take even more decision about how to reuse it and which kind of species, vegetable species are more suitable for that kind of soil, and also the water properties, hydraulic properties, in order to provide recommendations on the water management and irrigation. So these are finally the three regeneration projects in nature-based solutions in which the three towns um, are actually, the three towns are going to do. Actually, only one has been done, and you can see the surface, the permeable surface that has increased. And we can debate, about the project itself that was designed maybe not for, let's say, to reduce the thermal, to improve the thermal comfort of that site, but at least, the permeable surface has increased. And for conclusions, well, the main conclusions are that decision-making for the non-Atlantic initiative can be based on the soil ecosystem services, but also reusing the top and technosoils. The technosoils is the urban soil under the asphalt, under the covering surface, can help companies to save time and money regarding the soil dislocation, which is a very impacting in terms of economic cost for the companies, and allows also the traceability of the soil at the municipal area. And the tangible results are that all the maps that have been produced in this project are actually used by the European Union for the Common Agricultural Policy, because there are interesting data, especially in the carbon sequestration and in the territorial planning law. And then about 150 municipalities are are interested in our system. So that's finished. That's
Thank you, Francesca. I think we have time for a question, if anybody has one. I think it's a really good reminder that where we plant trees, there's soil underneath that we need to think about as well. Does anybody have a question for Francesca?
Thank you very much for your presentation. So I have a question: is like what kind of indicators do you use to assess the compensation effect, especially if you use before if you assess it like the UTCI on the average over the area?
The compensation was decided. You mean the surf, the width, the area of the surface for the compensation action, how it was decided. So basically, it is decided on the basis of the soil quality, and the soil quality of the area that is the new built site, and that soil quality is based on the average of the ecosystem services that are there basically. So there is a factor which is based on the average of the ecosystem services that are provided by in that specific site. I don't know if I answered your question.
Maybe one more at the back, and then we'll go to our last talk.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a question about ownership of the land use. The property is private or public? Because the probation might be very expensive or not.
These are public, let's say, public green areas, unless there are, let's say, built sites in a private land. So it takes into consideration also the fact that if a private wants to build in its own land, so it can do it, but it has to ask the authorization to the municipality. And then the municipality can provide that authorization, gets money, but the company for the especially the companies for the building, they need to they need to relocate that soil that is extracted, and the municipality has to provide another. Well, actually, I'm not sure I can answer your question, but for sure the municipality decides for the new regeneration site, so where it's going to be desealed, and where the soil that is extracted by the building company in the new build site, so that soil has to go to the regeneration site. The new the desealing site is decided, and it's in a public place. It's in a public property, let's say. But the new build site, it can be in a private place. I don't know so much in detail about the relationships between, or what it actually happens between the private property and the public sites. Because these projects, these regeneration projects were all in public land. So, but yeah, I mean, if you want to know more, you can also contact me, and I will ask also to the municipality in order to answer better your question.
Thank you, Francesca.
Thank you.
All right.